And at the age of 25, I decided that I want to break into the US market on my own.
All right, Gil and Artzy, thank you for joining me on 20-Minute Leaders.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
You already told me you're going to cheat on the last question, so I'm so excited for this interview because it's going to be, I think, different from all the rest. Gil, we know each other for many, many years now. Ever since I think I came to visit you in Palo Alto like 6 years ago for Any Meal, the diet startup. Gil, give me 2-3 sentences about UpWest and what you guys do. I had an episode with Shuli, but it's so amazing that we have to talk about it again.
There you go. So you can compare notes and see if we're doing a good job.
I want to keep you consistent.
There you go. So UpWest is an early stage seed fund. We actually invest in both pre-seed and seed stage, and we are tailor-made for Israeli founders that are looking to break into the US market. So we are focused on investing in Israeli founders and helping them in the early stages of ramping up the team, getting momentum, fundraising, and so forth here in the US. We've done it for close to 9 years now. We've backed over 80 companies that raised well over $1 billion in follow-on financing. First investor in SentinelOne, which is a unicorn startup, and many other prominent companies that we think at least a few will reach that stage. So we've been super excited to do this for a while now, and I'm looking for the future ahead.
Amazing. So I always joked with new funds that when you start out, the lifetime of a company is like 7 to 9 years. That's the game you're going into. So usually the first few years you can kind of go along without showing too many returns because it takes 7 to 9 years. But you're there, so now you have to show returns, and obviously you've shown some pretty amazing returns. Or you've shown amazing companies and where they're at now. What is this idea of Israelis in Silicon Valley and this integration and adaptation?
Yeah. So first of all, 8-9 years in VC is very, very young. I'm still learning every day. It's the equivalent of maybe 8-9 months in a startup. So we've been around for a while, but it takes.
That's how you feel, really.
Decades. I think Israel always had a very special relationship with the US, but on the tech front, specifically with the Valley, you've seen over the years fantastic companies emerge here. And in the last couple of decades in particular, many fantastic companies such as House and others have emerged here by really incredible Israeli founders. And our goal is to level the playing fields for Israeli companies that want to come here and get the same opportunities that the other founders that are already based here.
Amazing. Gil, how many companies, how many decks do you read a year?
We see well over 1,000. We invest in far less than 1%. And the way we think about it is not about screening them and stuff. I mean, we spend a lot of time in Israel and here, and whether it's Zoom or in person. Our goal is really also to give feedback, right? We want to contribute to their journey, give them some insights about the market, maybe a few competitors that maybe have not heard about or know, or we can add more information about. So we really want to help them and advise them because, they deserve it.
Incredible. I don't know many people who can talk about their job and say that after 9 years of being in the same quote unquote job, they're still learning every day, and it feels like they were only there for 8 or 9 months. So already I'm inspired by this passion. Gil, where do you come from? You have a pretty interesting leeway.
Yeah. So Israeli, shocking, right? My first 9 years, I was actually born in Be'er Sheva when my parents were in the very early 20s and going to university. So I was born in Be'er Sheva, but I grew up my first 9 years in Kfar Saba. We then moved to London. I spent 7 years growing up in London.
I can feel it in the accent.
The accent and definitely my passion for specific music and sports emerged there.
What is that passion? What is that music?
Ah, well, growing up in London in the 80s, right, you get attached to certain types of music and you take it with you. I'm definitely like discovering new music on an ongoing basis. I think that's where it began. Came back to Israel 16, back to Kfar Saba, did my military service. Wasn't smart enough to be an 8200 or so forth. I'm the oldest of three siblings, so I'm the alpha version. The alpha version is like, so my brother and sister did much better than me, of course, but I spent 3 years in the Armored Corps, did my undergrad, and at the age of 25, I decided that I want to break into the US market on my own, right? No real tech background, but I did want to know that I wanted to spend some time here, and moved here to do my MBA at Wharton, worked for BCG New York, and then Yahoo, and here we are.
Amazing. And what did you do at Yahoo?
I started off in the corporate development team, and which was amazing exposure. Got to work with fantastic people and even the founders of Yahoo. Being Israeli, I sent myself to Israel once or twice a year to see startups, help them, but also ended up acquiring Yahoo's first company in Israel, helping to open the first R&D center in Haifa. And it's actually where the seeding of sort of UpWest began when I met Shuli in 2006. And we start seeing stark differences between some of the founders here and some of the founders in Israel that were at least on the same level in terms of their DNA, but maybe didn't have the same opportunities as those that were already based in the US.
Incredible. I mean, I was just such a small kid. You're saying Yahoo, that was about 2005, 2006?
Started in 2005, spent 4 years in corp dev, 2 years in operations, yes.
So at that time, I had my Yahoo mailbox, and all my friends had a Yahoo mailbox. It was obviously a different time back then in terms of the market share of the companies. But that's incredible. And Gil, you have the unique experience of being a partner in quite a few portfolio companies. How many portfolio companies do you see through now over the past 9 years?
How many we've invested or seen?
Right, yeah, invested in, that you're a part
invested in 82.
82, okay. So you have the unique privilege and the challenging role to come into this incredibly difficult time over the past 3 months, and you have to help 82 companies or a little less go through this journey of dealing with COVID-19, and you actually have to do it also with a newborn. Congratulations, beautiful Maya. What is that like? What is your role as the VC partner in helping these portfolio companies push through this?
So first of all, it's not an individual sport, right? I mean, it's myself, my partners, but also the other great investors that backed our companies. I think for us, it's giving a sanity check to the founders and also helping spread information what others are doing. So, for example, in the very beginning, it's really encouraging them to take a close look at their runway and not be shy in making decisions, some of them tough, about their workforce. Because the longer you procrastinate and say, we'll have to wait, the more painful it becomes afterwards. So it's having those, eyes wide open conversation.
Did you have a situation where you pushed a founder to make that difficult decision, and you feel like if you weren't in the picture, they might not have been able to make it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say push them. I think maybe push them to think about other alternatives. And sometimes it's not just about us. It's about connecting them maybe to other founders. We also brought people that were, back in 2008, saw the previous recession and had to overcome that. So it's not just about what I know, what I think. It's about sort of being sort of their advisor and shepherding them through the process.
And do you approach this optimistically, pessimistically, or realistically? What's your position at the dinner table with your founding team?
There's no pessimist in the world. There's only optimists and realists, right? I think as a venture capitalist, as a founder, you have to have some heavy dose of optimism, right? It makes no sense to start a company and try to battle these incredible giants or overcome all the obstacles. So you need to have this level of optimism. So we do go into it, but at the same time, you need to plan for the worst, and the worst is you need to have 18, 24 months of runway, for example, and not just say, this will be a V-shaped recovery, and in 3 months, everything will be fine. You know what? Let's all hope so that's the case, but let's plan for it not being whatsoever that.
Amazing. Gil, what excites you? After 9 years, thousands of potential deals, 82 investments, well, what gets you up in the morning? What are you really, really excited about?
Lots of things. I don't think I'm one of those investors that says, this domain or that domain. I think for me, it really comes to the people that we meet at a coffee shop on the corner of Rothschild Avenue and something in Tel Aviv, when they only have the gleam in their eyes and they just started. And it's about trying to see if sort of we can help guide them through coming to the US and growing their business to become what we think it can become. So I think it's that optimism, that belief, those early days, the process, the ups, the downs. I think the journey itself is what excites me. Certainly new technologies impact on the world. I'm completely on board, but it's I think being part of that journey of one person against the world, quote unquote, that I like being part of.
And how would you describe your engagement with them? Some VCs are very hands off, take my money and leave, sort of dumb money. Some of them are, let's come sit in our offices, I'm giving a small hint. But how do you approach this relationship of yours with your portfolio companies at such an early stage?
Yeah, look, I think each investor wants to contribute. I think each investor plays a different role. So at the very beginning, we are almost always the first and only money in the company. So it's about typically guiding them in the right direction, avoiding making big mistakes, helping them make some decision at the early on, helping them to find additional investors that can invest. And over time, that evolves because now they have different advisors that bring something else to the table. So for us, we have to ask ourselves, okay, how do we change our position and our advice to complement some of the other people that are supporting the CEO and the founders? So even our role changes over time.
Not totally, but at the end also, I got to be in the UpWest offices quite a few times at this point. It's practically my second home outside of the Stanford dorms. You walk in and you see, 5, 6 different companies sitting in their tables, talking to each other, all friends. Everybody's so nice. It's kind of like a hub. It reminds me of the Google campus that was back in a lecture building, a few years ago, where you walk in and there's this electricity and fire. And so it doesn't look like it's a VC office. It looks like it's a workspace where you're not just giving money to the portfolio companies, you're actually giving mentorship and friendship. Yep. And a community for them to work together in the heart of Silicon Valley, which is it's away from Tel Aviv, where they get to be with other Israelis right in the same room.
Yeah, two things about it. You're completely right. First of all, the community, critical word for us. It's about founders going shared experiences that actually are pretty unique to them when you think about it. You move to the US, you come with your significant other with kids, many of them, that's not easy whatsoever. No. So you shared experiences both of companies at your same stage, but also of those that came 1, 2, 5 years ahead of you. So we make sure to bring all that to the table. But the second thing is we absolutely make sure that folks are not sort of sitting within themselves. It's about pushing them out, immersing in the ecosystem, just because the culture, the business here can be at first challenging and not that straightforward to understand. I'm still figuring it out, right? So almost a couple of decades onwards. So it's about definitely being out there. It's very easy to get into your shell and be with your own folks, but you absolutely have to be out there to succeed.
Definitely. Are things changing in the VC world? Well, what's happening? Are things have been the same over the past few decades? Where do you see things going forward? Not just with UpWest, but general venture capital relationship with entrepreneurs, let's say in the next decade?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm smart enough to sort of see the next decade, but there's definitely in the last 10 years plus have been some definitely big changes. I think the definition of venture capital has changed, what VCs bring to the table. Many firms have taken that to add lots of experiences and value adds in various ways. So it's not just the partners in the fund. Funds of all sizes, right? In the past, seed funds, what is a seed fund? Anything below 50, 100 didn't make any sense. Now you have super angels turning seed funds. That happened a decade ago or so, began at least. Really fantastic funds there. Obviously, the SoftBank phenomena and funds not raising 300, but 3 billion and even 100 billion as we saw. So things have changed a lot, but the core of it hasn't evolved, which is trying to get conviction about a team, hoping that they get conviction about you, because you're about to spend 7 to 10 years working together. So you want this mutual respect, exactly, hopefully, mutual respect, mutual ability to work together. So finding those partnerships with the founders is not easy. It actually shouldn't be easy. It's a big decision for both sides. That hasn't changed.
Right. And now I'm talking as the young entrepreneur. I get to surround myself with incredible other young entrepreneurs, much smarter than me, and both from 8200 and Stanford. I'm just amazed by the things that some of them are doing. And it's very confusing. There's a lot of options, a lot of places to go. How does a young entrepreneur balance their journey? On one hand, there is this pride and I'm going to go raise money and I'm going to finish my combinator and raise the biggest seed round I can raise. The other hand, you have the more conservative approach of I'm not sure that I need money. I can maybe bootstrap this, or maybe I'm looking for specific strategic investors. So how does a young entrepreneur like myself navigate through all these options? And what's the most important thing to keep in mind as I'm building my team, as I'm building my strategy to eventually make a big impact?
Great question. So first of all, there's no one way, right? There's no one way, no one way that fits everything. I think for young founders, I think it's about surrounding yourself with the right set of advisors or friends and experiences that you gather along the way, and see what works for you. Sometimes, it's about you're knowledgeable about a business that you're super passionate about, and you can make it into a bootstrap and you can work on it before fundraising, if at all. Sometimes it's, you have maybe some technical skills or unique team that you put together that you really have to raise a meaningful seed to show something meaningful at the early stage. So there's no one answer, but I think I would encourage everyone to, especially in Stanford, make those internships count during the years, during the summer, make them as diverse as humanly possible, reach out to people, have coffee chats. I actually, I think as my journey took me here, I spoke to many dozens of venture capitalists before even knowing what that is and deciding to jump into the deep end. And this is 10 years post-MBA. So I took full advantage of my personal network, my business, professional networks, to just talk to people and see what they say and what they've learned and their experiences, and then figure out the right path for me. And the right path for me was not to join a big VC, but we had the opportunity to start our own, Shuli and me, and bootstrap it, if you can believe it, at the very beginning. So that was the answer for us. Does that mean that's the answer for everyone in our profession? No.
Sure. Yeah. No. It seems like there is a growing trend where relationships are not so much about the long term, but it's more about what can you offer me today, and I can offer you something tomorrow, which is kind of disheartening. And you see it with a competitive nature. I think sometimes at a place like Stanford, there's a lot of others who are very interested in forming these personal relationships. I value them a lot, and that's why I love doing what we're doing here and getting to know you over these years. And hopefully, one day I can be in front of you, and I'll be one of the 1,000 decks that you receive in your mailbox. Hopefully, sooner rather than later. Gil, last thoughts about where are you headed with this? Do you see yourself continuing with UpWest, growing it into a massive VC? Do you see yourself navigating potentially to other areas? What's up with you?
So as much as I can help it and control things, this is the last job I want to be doing, right? I have no desire to do anything else. It's our startup, right? This is our startup.
This is a startup.
UpWest is a startup. We bootstrap it. We raise money from people. We're trying to grow to a certain extent, but that's what sort of we do, right?
I even asked you in the email. I asked you. I thought we might talk about being a VC versus starting a startup, but you're actually starting a startup while doing a VC
startup. Yeah. So I absolutely treat it that way. And going forward, we do want to scale a little bit, but ultimately what will guide us is we want to invest in very early stage startups funded by Israelis, wherever they are, and help them break into the US market. If we raise too much money, it doesn't make sense to write a pre-seed or seed check. We now have to be a Series A fund, which A, is less fun for me, and B, there's so many better investors than us to do it. So we want to specialize in being that first check, and so we have to right-size the fund so we can't raise too much, right?
Love it. Gil, 3 words that best describe you, and now I'm ready for the cheating.
So the cheating is, I'm a big fan of hyphens.
All right.
I will be hyphenating a little bit here. So on sort of the business side, I aspire to be a trusted advisor. So that's a hyphenated word. That's what I would like to continue to be and aspire to be, and hopefully I can continue perfecting that. On a personal level, as you see me sitting in the pink room here, I will take on the description of simple, of like a father. I'm still figuring it out and will likely figure it out for a long time. So that would be my second word, and I didn't cheat here. That's a non-hyphenated.
I love it. So it looks kind of white, but now we'll make it clear this is a pink room. Gil is sitting in your daughter's room, right?
Yeah, light pink room, exactly. And then the third, I didn't know what to say, so I'll just go with, and this is absolutely hyphenated, from Kfar Saba. I'm a proud dual citizen of Israel, the US. But where I grew up, my roots is from Kfar Saba, and what that means to me is community, family, and that is where I'm from and where I started. And, frankly, all my family, cousins, aunts, about 40 close members of my family all live 5 minutes from one another, walking distance, and I'm the only one who isn't. So I'm like the black sheep of the family. Yeah, that's the third word.
I love it.
Hyphenated that I used to describe myself.
Gil, toda rabba. Best of luck. It sounds amazing. And look for my email with the deck in 1 or 2 years.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.